I'd like to introduce Matt Foll. Matt's the Executive Vice President and co-owner of Sopra Systems. Matt, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thanks, Bill. So Matt Foll, Executive Vice President, as Bill said, I've been working with field service related and project-based companies for over 20 years, really helping them apply Microsoft technologies to drive business value outcomes through technology.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Thomas. I've been working with service-based organizations for over 22 years, first as a CFO and then as an operations analyst, and then transitioned into consulting.
And hello, everybody. This is Matt Klein. I've worked in the AEC and field service industries for roughly 28 years, starting out as a civil engineer and then moving into technology. And in the past 5 years, most recently focused on field service.
Great, thanks. So today what we're going to go through really is talking a little bit about what's happening in the industry and why it's important for companies to look at connected cloud and or a digital strategy. We'll look at really the Microsoft platform and really why Microsoft is well positioned to help companies realize their true potential. And then finally, we'll actually look at some actual live instances of the connected cloud in a couple of different scenarios. So I think it's important when you think about really, what are companies doing as it relates to really leveraging a connected cloud. And when we look at the different companies we work with, it runs the gamut from oil and gas to telecom to traditional third-party field service to HVACs and so on. And really, to be honest, everybody's on a different level of where they're at on that kind of digital journey. Some are really looking at fixing the back-end plumbing and just getting our house in order, while others are much more advanced and really looking at truly a connected world and maybe even in a monitoring or a command type of connected device world. And so the good news is there's not a lot of people that are out of the gate and way ahead of everybody, but we are seeing a major shift as it relates to leadership and owners really focusing in on knowing they've got to do something and planning for making a shift to a connected cloud scenario. Next. So when we look at really what is the biggest thing that's impacting field service industry and service industries in general is this whole concept of outcome-based services models. So instead of kind of traditional, when we look at our services agreement, they were typically a cost-plus situation. So we're selling either a fixed price or we're selling a T&M type services, and then we're adding a percentage on top of that, and then trying to get our services done in a very response time type of scenario. That business isn't going away. The problem is it's very low margin business and is becoming commoditized. So what companies are really looking at and what their customers are driving them to is really outcome based. So how do you prove to me that you're substantially going to improve my business, and not just from getting a piece of equipment up and running, but really helping me optimize either facility and how we leverage that asset better, or if it's a piece of equipment, how would I get a better life out of that and ultimately drive better services on my end. So when we look at our contracts, they're evolving from traditional kind of break fix and cost plus models to this concept of really value based and performance based. So obviously that has a lot of impact on how we deliver the services we do. And so as you get more into a performance-based or outcome-based contract, there's obviously a lot more constraints as it relates to what we deliver, the value we deliver, and how efficiently we deliver that. So what's happening is really we're seeing technology being applied not to just from operational efficiencies, but ultimately rethinking how we deliver our services. And when we look at our different cost models as it relates to the individuals that perform the work, is there an opportunity to really rethink that service model so that we can optimize senior level people that are higher cost into more of a oversight or shadowing with people in the field through technologies, and or taking it to the fully connected world where we're minimizing our truck rolls by allowing us to directly monitor, manage, and potentially command changes within a device to fix a problem. So obviously it's changing how we do our business dramatically. When we look at really from an organizational perspective, I think this is where a lot of companies miss the boat, and really understanding, there's a lot of this kind of buzzword of digital transformation and all these shiny, cool things. Some of them you're going to see today. But there's no silver bullet. And the reality is that we've got to take the time to assess where we're at as an organization. Do we have the right resources to embrace this change? And ultimately, what's the impact? If you think talent is a great example, you think about our technicians historically have been very focused on that service call and that break-fix type of resolution. But the reality is they are the front line, and depending on what markets you're in, they become sellers and doers. And so how do we train them and empower them to really go after upsell opportunities, as well as aligning compensations to get the kind of behavior and provide the type of opportunity for these individuals to be successful. So there's a lot that's happening, not just from contracts, how we deliver, but also what do we need to do as an organization to embrace this shift and take advantage of it. And that last leg is really that digital journey or digital strategy. So what is it that makes sense for us to actually engage with from a technology perspective, and that being driven by either market demand, customer demand, or differentiation in the market, and not just kind of this silver bullet mindset, which is, hey, we're just going to go out and connect devices and it's going to radically change our business model. So when we look at kind of what's happening in the industry as this outcome-based service model really changing how we do service delivery and what our customers want from us, the connected cloud becomes that much more important. So when we look at the really kind of the first milestone, and I think this is kind of a fun slide, and historically it's the MIT type data that was done a while back as it relates to summing up maturity in this digital market. And really there's 4 key components, and if you look at the kind of 2 parameters, the digital intensity is really looking at, are we doing this as a siloed one-off technology investment, or is this going to be part of a platform play? And when you look at really the management intensity, it's really looking at, is this something that is coming out of IT, or is it coming out of one part of the business, or is this something that's being driven from the top down? And when you look at the difference between a fashionista or digital master and conservative and so on, the utopia, which is that digital master, combines those 2 things. So it is not a quick fix, shot in the pan as it relates to, hey, we're just going to spin up this technology and see what happens. It's much more of a tactical business planning as it relates to what do we see in the market as disruption opportunity, how are we going to actually take advantage of that, and how are we going to apply technology and integrate our environments to really move into more of a connected, predictive, and ultimately preventive type of outcome in our services model. So after you look at really kind of the maturity of the organization and systematically really documenting where we're at as an organization, we use a bit more metrics-driven kind of process to that maturity assessment. And it's not just to look at digital transformation, it's just looking at the organization saying that we are going to go through a major cultural shift here, and what are the changes we have to do? How do we prioritize these initiatives, and ultimately how do we tie it into a larger plan? So when we look at it from a technical perspective in a mature platform kind of connected world, ultimately what makes sense for us as an organization? What we see a lot of times out there, that there are initiatives, kind of reactive initiatives, either by your customer says to you, God, if you had this, we would do a lot of business with you, as an example. And so because of the fact that the back-end strategy is not more in a all-up architectural kind of plan, it ends up being kind of ad hoc, and ad hoc is very hard to sustain. So as you can see, there's a lot of elements to really fully kind of integrated cloud. In particular, when you look at kind of 4 key components, which is really our customers, our partners, the machines, and our employees, all of that is changing tremendously. And what impact that has on our architectural strategy, we have to understand those relationships and how we can create value with those relationships to ultimately drive better customer experiences, as well as our partner, leveraging our partnerships, as well as our employees. So if we take that down a level and really look at Microsoft and what Microsoft is doing in this dynamic world, you'll see there's a very unique element of the strategy is it relates to consistently what we talked about on the maturity side, that not everybody's going to come out of the gates and have a architecture like this. And so if we move on to the next slide, you'll see an architecture that really allows you to start off based on that kind of long-term plan, consuming components that make sense, and we'll look at some of that today, and really looking at best use as it relates to roles within the organization, roles within that partnership, roles with our customers. How can we start to evolve into this connected cloud kind of digital strategy? And so when you look at what Microsoft is doing in this intelligent cloud, it's taking things like the technologies we use today, like Office and Yammer and so on, and embedding the Azure really sweet spot, which is the analytics, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, all that kind of stuff, into daily tasks and opportunities. And we'll see some of that today. When you look at it from a Dynamics 365 or the business application side of things and really kind of traditional ERP, CRM and field service automation, they're really kind of disrupting that. And what are the things that we know today? We know that our business is dynamic. We know that sometimes integration is not, full integration, single platform is not possible, and there's maybe some regulatory systems we still got to keep in play. So, or there's different use cases on really how well people adapt to technology and so on. And so we need an architecture that really allows us to really develop, if we look at kind of the right side of things, very personalized experiences based on how users need to engage with technology, as well as an architecture that is very open, that allows us to not only integrate with other systems, but things like big data, so that we can ultimately drive to more of an intelligent cloud type of scenario. And so we'll look at some of this today. So if you look at the next slide, when we look at specifically service industry and kind of, I think, the unique value proposition that Microsoft has, in particular with our customers today, typically our service customers are not just selling one type of business. So they're not just selling service agreements or just selling a project statement of works and so on. Most of the time, either they've got two distinct line of businesses in the same organization that have those different types of services they're selling, or it's part of one contract. So we're selling a single contract that has installation work, more kind of construction build work, but also has a service agreement tied to it. So in the Microsoft Dynamics world, what allows you to do is really not really both from a selling and from a contract perspective, is really being able to take advantage of both those type of contracts, and in particular when we start to move into the performance out-based contracts, it really is dynamic, allowing you to move into that kind of model with your customers. And so as we move that kind of downstream, what does that allow us to do? Well, when we look at resource management and really resource deployments and optimizing resources, it allows us to use a scheduling optimizer or resource management optimizer to manage all my resources, not just my service agreement resources or my project-based resources or even my materials. So it really is bringing the utopia of how do we maximize resources against the demand that we have, whether it be in backlog or new business that's coming on board. And then looking at interoperability within kind of traditional back office transactional systems like inventory management and finance. And so as we know in the field services industry, it's not just about services. It's very much about materials in many cases. In many cases, the financials as it relates to how we recognize revenue and how we manage costs that are accumulated, and ultimately how we bill our customers. So as we evolve that out to the field, we too on the field side need dynamic applications, and individuals, as we talked about earlier, where that technician role is changing, so too does the platform need to change. So what we're seeing with technicians is that traditionally they just need access to work orders, and they needed to turn that work order around quickly. Maybe they needed to consume some parts from their vehicle and or put an order in, but now they're actually fulfilling the order process. In many cases, maybe need to be tied to see what outstanding payments does the customer have. So our technology needs to evolve with these roles. And then as we start to connect devices, that demand also expands on the platform itself. And so we've got to surface that information, which you'll see today, in a very user-friendly situation, so that our technicians can easily take advantage of some of these new technologies. And one of the other big areas that we're seeing expansion and kind of change in model in this industry is really around the customer service type of model with things like RPA and bots, and really looking at what things make sense for a human to touch and what things can we automate and reapply those individuals on a more high-value tasks and customer experience. So next slide.
Thank you, Matt. Morning, everybody. My name is James Thomas, and I'm going to kick off the first set of demos that we're going to show you about the connected cloud. And Matt had a slide on the intelligent business cloud, and relationship insights, which is what I'm going to show you, is a great example of this. As you can see from the slide, today we get customer touches into our organization from many different ways, right? Different channels. It could be email, phone, a portal, even IoT. So connected devices can automatically create alerts and communications back to the dispatch, so that we can be focused on automating, what traditionally was fairly manual roles. So relationship insights and analytics, it's also known as embedded intelligence. And it's a suite of features which continuously evaluates customer-centric information, customer interaction that's already stored in our D365 environment, as well as Microsoft Exchange databases. And what that allows us to do is to be able to better understand our business relationships, evaluate our activities in relation to what has worked well in the past, and then decide on what's the best path forward. It uses advanced analytics and machine learning and AI in order to be able to surface this type of information. So what we're going to see is really how Microsoft is bringing together structured data that's sitting in our D365 environment with unstructured data. For example, all the emails that is sitting in Exchange. But those emails can contain a treasure trove of information about that customer, the customer's sentiment, if they have concerns, or if there is dissatisfaction, will be expressed in the email. So through artificial intelligence and machine learning, relationship insights is able to analyze that information. And over a period of time, as you begin to collect a lot of data in both systems, you get better analytics. And so I am going to transition to the product. Okay, so assuming everyone can see my screen here, this is Outlook. And it's Outlook with the app for D365 add-in installed. And that's why on the right-hand side, you can see a D365 pane. So you have a real live connection between Outlook and D365. So I'm going to send an email in relation to an IoT alert that I have received. So I'm sending it to James T. And you can see as I've input that email, the D365 app has gone out and looked to see if this email is recorded in the D365 environment. And it's come back and said, yes, James T is a contact. And this is his position. And this is his office number and mobile number. I can call James directly from here to launch Skype. So it shows you a really good integration with some more business productivity tools that Microsoft offer. But furthermore, James is also connected to an account called Contoso Fabrication. There is an appointment with James coming up at 12:30 to review orders. And he is also linked with a number of opportunities that are currently in my pipeline. So it has surfaced some really pertinent information that may help me structure this communication with James that much better. And so there's a number of other things to be aware of that we can do from Outlook. One is called tracking the email. What tracking the email does is that the system creates an email activity in CRM, but it's not linked to any specific record. And so effectively, it copies your Exchange email into D365. So you have a full-blown copy of that email tracked against James as the contact record. Then we have something called set regarding as well. So set regarding is a combination of tracking the email, but also linking the email to a particular record. So if I want to link it to a case that the IoT alert issued to us, I can link that over here. So you can see it brought up all the records that James is associated with, and even what the account is associated with. And I want to send this email to James T. In relation to this particular case that was created by the connected field service device. So here I'm going to send an email to James. And the last thing I want to do with this email is something called follow. So following the email, what the system does is that it adds an invisible GIF as an attachment to the email. And that's what, it's kind of a token that allows us to follow what's happening to that email, when it's been received, when it's been opened, if a link that's embedded in the email has been clicked on, if the email has been forwarded. So that GIF, or the actual following of an email, allows us to be able to track all of those activities against the email. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit send here. So I'm tracking and following this particular email. So let's now go into the actual application. So I am currently in D365, and I have that particular case that was created from an IoT alert. So these cases can be created in D365 a number of ways. You can create it from a connected device like this particular example, but you can also create one manually. You can create one from an email. So there is a feature called email to case. So if an email is sent to a particular Exchange mailbox, it can automatically be converted into a case. So that's also another example of how the system takes unstructured data like an email and puts it into a structured manner so that you can then now triage the event and then take action against it. Let's see if the email has appeared here. So if I just refresh this particular timeline. So the timeline contains a tracking of all communication type activities. And you can see the email that I just sent, the turbine number 33 oil leak, is now recorded against this particular case. I will also be able to respond to this email from here. So another great example of how closely integrated Microsoft is making many of its productivity tools like Skype and Exchange into the application. So you're able to really see relevant content in any application that you are actually in. So let's also, my role in this particular demonstration is one of an account manager. I've got a number of accounts that I manage, but the one that I want to focus on happens to be one of my largest accounts, is Contoso Fabrication. So we can go ahead and open that account. And you can see that because that case was related to the account, so you can see the account here is Contoso Fabrication. Using the relationships that the system offers, it has also known to put and track that email also at the account level. So the same email is now also surfaced in the account because it's relevant to this particular account. So anyone who is managing this account doesn't have to go to multiple places in order to see all the communications that has been made against, a particular person within this account. But you can just go directly to the account and see all of the emails that have been sent. So you're able to get a really good understanding of the state of the account in terms of how you're doing with that customer. Then we have the relationship assistant here. So the relationship assistant is the component that I referred to in terms of how we use and leverage AI and machine learning. And so through those automated engines, it creates action cards. And that's what you see in this relationship assistant panel over here. So it's saying, look, your email was just opened. So this is part of following an email. This is how we're able to track what happens to that email. Conversely, it can also alert you if the email was not opened after a period of time. So you can say, alert me if this email is not opened in 2 hours or 2 days. So this provides some really good tools for you to be able to start following up just in case, the emails do not get read and you're dealing with a priority issue. It also says, hey, by the way, you've got an opportunity where a larger capacity machine is part of a sale. And so this is going to be closing, and the opportunity closes actually on Thursday next week. And I can go ahead and open the opportunity right from here. So each of these cards has an action item, whether it's opening the record or creating an activity or doing some sort of action, it offers that. Here, an issue was detected in an email. Again, this is an example of AI in action. So it's gone out and read the email and said, hey, by the way, there is some keywords in here that says maybe your customer is having an issue with it. And so it's produced that card. And then cards can be dismissed. So if it's not something that's relevant to what you need to take action on, you can dismiss it. And when you dismiss it, the machine learning components starts to learn that, maybe these types of cards are not relevant to you. And therefore, in the future, it'll minimize the incidence of creating those types of cards. Here's another example of machine learning. So the email, this was an email that contained a link to an article about IoT. And that article was part of an email where James T. was expressing concerns about certain things that were written about IoT in the article. And so that's been surfaced here so that you can take a look at this and maybe reach out to James and help him understand about IoT, provide some clarity, and hopefully allay those concerns. So these are very real life instances of how you can have a customer-centric focus, but leverage a lot of automation and connected cloud services to really make an impactful communications and connections with your customer. When I scroll down, this is another example of a 360-degree view of my customer. So I've got all my communications in the middle here. I've got my relationship assistant action cards. I've got all the opportunities that I'm working on linked here. The case that we saw is also linked. So in one screen, I'm able to look at a lot of things that is happening on this account. And some of this information is coming from, within the system, as well as external sources like Exchange in this case. I can drill down into James's record here as well. So if I go to the primary contact, I can go ahead and open James's account. And so his account card will also open, and it will surface similar information that is contextual in nature. So if we now look at the action cards that are showcased under the Contact James T, we see two of the same action cards that was at the account level. But we also see some additional items about the meeting. 2 meetings with James coming up this afternoon. And I can actually attend the meeting right from here because it's a Skype meeting, so I can launch the meeting right from here. Another example of a solid integration between those productivity tools. And here I also have all of the emails that are coming through in communications with James. And so the last place that I would like to go to here, actually before I do that, I want to, because I've got a couple of sales opportunities with James, I want to engage with him a little more about the types of products that we sell. So I can go ahead here and create an email for him. So this email is going to be an invite to an upcoming marketing event. So this email is fully integrated with Outlook. It will appear in my Outlook. Receive the response in Outlook as well. So I want to use a template. So templates are a great way of being able to provide a consistent, professional message through email to your customers. Too often, many people structure emails very differently. And if we want to really harness some consistency and professional looking emails with logos and everything, you can actually use templates to be able to do that. So here is a marketing event template. I'm going to select that, and it's going to load that information directly into my email body. And now I can do a number of things with this email. So it's already going to be followed, and we know what follows means. So I will know when James opens this email, or if he doesn't open the email. Then I can schedule this email to be sent at a later time. So this is a good example if you're creating emails perhaps outside of business hours. Maybe you're working on the weekend. The system will actually give you a message saying, hey, this is not James T's business hours. We can send it first thing on Monday at 9 o'clock, because we've found out that emails that you've sent in the past on Monday mornings get opened by James, but when you send it on a Friday afternoon, they don't. So machine learning will prompt you even about the best times to send an email. Then I can also set up a reminder to follow up on this email. And I can say, if I don't receive a reply from James by a certain date and time, create a reminder for me. Or if this email is not opened, or regardless, create a reminder. So really nice features to be able to utilize against this particular activity. And so I'm just going to hit the send button. That's going to send the email off to James. And that will show up here as a sent email activity. And I will be able to know, I will know that I've invited him for this industry event. And so it keeps you updated about the latest communications that you have with your customer, and you don't ask the same thing twice, as an example. The last place that I'm going to go is actually to a dashboard. So as an account manager, I have an account manager dashboard. And the purpose of this dashboard is, again, to provide kind of a one-stop shop about everything that's happening that's relevant to helping me do a good job in my role as an account manager. So I've got my active cases. So these are all customer service oriented items. I've got open activities. So these are all it's like my to-do list. So you can see the types of activities of appointments, tasks, phone calls. I've got my active work orders. So these are field service work orders. Just because it's surfaced here doesn't mean I'm working on those work orders. I just want to know what all we are doing against my accounts as an account manager, so I have a good understanding without having to pick up the phone and find out from each person what's going on in the account. I'll be able to go in and be able to see that on my own. I've got a list of all of my open opportunities, all my active accounts, and here is my relationship assistant again. And here, because now I'm in a dashboard, I'm not in a record like a contact record or an opportunity record or an account record. Now my relationship assistant action cards are going to look a little different because it's going to have a broader set of action cards. And the relationship assistant actually can be recalled on almost any screen by just clicking this little light bulb on your main toolbar, and then it'll pop it open. You really don't have to navigate to a particular menu item in order to be able to do that. You can see here.
Hey, James.
Yes.
James, awesome stuff, but I think we're getting a little bit over time. We're going to have to move on to the next section, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
Thank you, guys. Over to you, Matt.
So as we saw from James's section, really, the power of the connected cloud is that you've got AI and machine learning in the background surfacing information about what's going on within your accounts, and so that you can take action, and then really that 360 view of what's going on with our customers. So regardless of what role in the organization I'm in, I can have that same view, whether it be on mobile, whether it be back office or whatever, however I need to engage with the business. So now we're going to look at really the downstream element of kind of service delivery and how connected cloud interacts with that side of the operations.
Yeah, so thank you, Matt. This is Matt Klein. I'm going to go through this quite quickly to make sure that we have time for Q&A. Intelligent field service is, of course, a very big topic. So for today's presentation, as you can see on the slide, we narrowed focus on 4 key pillars. Connected field service, using the Azure IoT Hub, really taps into the Internet of Things. That's probably the best way to summarize that. So that allows D365 field service to interact directly with connected assets, and that's true wherever those assets are in the world and anywhere you happen to be with a device to connect. So a very wide-ranging, wide capability solution with CFS. So CFS allows your assets to report their status in real time so you can monitor the condition. It also lets you capture and log key data points. So the Azure IoT Hub has the ability to store and maintain information. And what's really nice about that is you can use Azure machine learning and AI to take that data, identify trends, and this enables failure prediction so that preventive service can be done before there's a costly repair. So a huge value point with the Azure machine learning layered with CFS. And of course, the devices can respond to a growing array of commands sent remotely via the connected cloud. For demo, we're going to show you how a technician can even speak to the device through his mobile, which is a really nice way to cut down on site visits. Intelligent scheduling is really fundamentally about facilitating the process of scheduling and assigning work to produce the most optimal work plans for your organization. D365 uses a really innovative concept called universal scheduling, and it's a really cool marketing term, but it actually means what it says. You truly can schedule and assign just about anything using the system. So out of the box, you can do projects and tasks, work orders, even ad hoc appointments, but you can also schedule items that are unique to your business. Say, for example, if you had vehicle maintenance that you wanted to do on a regular basis, you could use this to schedule those as specific items and track them in the system that way. So really, really capable. The schedule board, as you can see on the slide, that's what we're looking at. It is a very visual drag and drop scheduling tool with a lot of powerful scheduling options. So obviously you can see the color coding, and we'll see this a little bit later. Color coding, graphics and icons, other visual cues make it very easy to assess the scope, work status, and resource assignments at a quick glance. So in addition to drag drop basic scheduling, which is fairly intuitive, you just drag a required work item onto the schedule board and it immediately assigns it to that person. There's also the ability to do assisted and optimized scheduling. So assisted scheduling I like to call Match.com of scheduling, which essentially pairs work that has to be done to the people that are qualified and available to do them. So there are a number of factors that we won't go into today, that it looks at to do that, but it allows your dispatch and project teams to quickly find the right people. And then the optional optimization engine I mentioned. So this is used to automatically build optimized work plans based on your given objectives and constraints. So you give it a pretty limited set of facts. You just tell it what you want it to do, and it runs in the connected cloud in Azure, runs through many, many permutations to come up with the most optimal plan based on your facts. And because it's in Azure, this does not give or does not create any drain on your processing power of D365. So it runs kind of separately and away from your organization. Okay. Platform interoperability. Okay, this is probably the biggest value point. Matt pointed it out on the earlier slides, but the fact of this is just, it's amazing what this interop can do, and this is kind of where I get pretty excited about the platform. It's somewhat hidden and easy to overlook, though, because these pieces are intentionally subtle, but they give you an incredible amount of power. So some of the things that are components of this, Azure Active Directory gives you basically universal identities across your organization, including single sign-on. I think you've probably seen that a lot if you've been working within the Microsoft Office suite. It's the same sort of thing, only extended to the rest of the entire connected cloud platform. And then, of course, Office 365 tools are pretty much everywhere. So you can see Excel, Word, SharePoint, Outlook, Skype, etc. Those are embedded throughout the system. And so that's nice because those are familiar tools. So your organization already knows Excel and Word, I'm sure. So that makes it a lot easier for user adoption and also reduces training costs because you do not have to explain these things to people. Another really nice feature of the whole connected cloud is Power BI. This one is a bit understated, but it's an incredibly powerful tool. It can bring together data from all sorts of sources, so including Excel, not just systems. But that brings that information together to give you the kinds of answers that you need to support your organization. And those charts and graphs and such can be embedded anywhere. So in a live executive dashboard, for example, on a website, wherever you'd like to post it. And then finally, final comment on the platform interop is really sort of the holy grail of enterprise interop, and that is the common data service, which you might have seen on the earlier slide that Matt showed, Microsoft Flow and Microsoft Logic apps. And just in a nutshell, these three components really establish a sort of common language so that, for example, a contact record has unified, consistent meaning throughout all of your enterprise systems. So that greatly facilitates data integration. It also greatly facilitates understanding across your organization. And Flow and Logic apps allow your business processes really to span multiple systems without the need for complex data integrations that would otherwise be required. So bottom line there is it allows your systems to talk to one another, again, unlike traditional data integration. And last point there is that this is not limited to just Microsoft. So there are currently a lot of free connectors to allow D365 and your other systems through this platform to talk with other systems, even competing systems. So this allows you to reach that true connected enterprise capability that we've been promised for so many years, and it's finally here. And final point about mobile. I can't say enough about mobile. I get pretty excited about this stuff, and you'll see the mobile in just a bit. It's an incredibly powerful, highly configurable app. It works on any device and platform. Yes, so one nice thing about that is it lets your organization support BYOD or multi-platform device policies, so you're not locked in terms of hardware. So you can go for cheap devices in addition to more modern devices, all in the same ecosystem without having to worry about anything other than the IT support of those. The mobile app is really secure. I think it's got AES 256 encryption. It's at the top. Has remote administration tools built in, so there's no need for an MDM or EMM solution just for this app. Lots of connectivity and sync options to reduce costs for data connectivity. Very robust offline capability to the point where you have zero loss of functionality when disconnected, which I think is very unique for these sorts of products. Usually you get a sort of a light version when you go offline with most competing products. And as I mentioned before, it's highly configurable, so there's really no need to worry about alignment with your business process. You can manage this tool, and it's user configurable. It's not IT configurable to fit perfectly with your business. Some of the features we'll talk about briefly when we do the demo. So in the interest of time, let's go ahead and move on to that. Okay, so to illustrate some of what I discussed, I'm going to walk through a scenario. Let me share my desktop here. Okay, so to illustrate some of what I discussed, I'm going to walk through a scenario. Let me share my desktop here. Okay, so I'm going to walk through a scenario where an IoT alert, which is triggered from the IoT hub, the Azure IoT hub, through anomaly detection rules. So a temperature reading is going to pass a threshold. That is going to be transformed into the alert sent to D365 and can then be processed. And I think James talked a little bit about IoT alert processing as part of his example. But essentially, I'm going to walk you through that very briefly, and then we'll go into the schedule board and see how that's scheduled, including a quick conversation via Skype with our tech. And then we'll go to the tech and see how he's able to quickly deliver the connected asset service for the asset remotely using the mobile app. Okay, so for our scenario, we're looking at the connected field service dashboard. This is one of many dashboards available, as well as a number that can be configured. So you're not limited to what you see here. You can make this whatever you like. Got a couple of charts and down below a couple of lists, just to give a sampling of what you can see. And I can switch from chart to chart if I'd like, just to give an example. So I can see I've got some recent alerts for the WT45252 generator, and that's the item that we have issues with. So I'm going to click on one of those to drill in. And that immediately brings me to that particular alert where I clicked on the data point on the chart. So as I click different data points, it's going to filter the list off to the right to fit that. It makes it very easy to drill in. So I can see I've got an alert. Temperature reading of 101 exceeded a threshold of 75. So my generator apparently is overheating. If I want to drill into that, I just need to click on that. And what we're going to see here is the IoT alert process flow that's set up for this. This is a business process flow. This is completely configurable. So this is not limited to it's not limited to what is out of the box. You have the ability to set these process flows, including rules that say, if I go to this step, I have to provide this required info before I can move on. So that's really great for ensuring consistency in how you do your process, as well as in consistency in how you collect data. And as we know, without good data, you cannot do any decent analytics, and you can't learn from both your successes and mistakes. So that's a fantastic way to ensure quality data. So I'm not going to go through the steps here. You can see that the process flow, we've already created a case. So upon the alert coming in, a support team looked at it, determined that that work needs to be done, that a technician needs to look at it. So we do into the create work order state. And I'll just really quick, I'll click on case to give you a sense of the ability to navigate. You can see that for cases, there's a lot of information. So I've got the ability to go to knowledge records, for example, see what's going on with the SLA performance, and so on. And similarly with work orders, again, similar information, lots and lots of detail captured here. These views throughout the system, and this is a consistent theme, you can configure these so that you do not show more information that is needed, which is a really nice feature. You're not stuck with a bunch of stuff on the screen that is not relevant for your business. Okay, so now we're at the schedule work order state. And to take care of that, we go to the schedule board that we talked about before. Okay, here it is, in all of its colorful glory. So the schedule board, the main pane will show you at a quick glance the status, the travel times and durations of work orders, who is working on them and when, and even gives you such indicators as you can see this little flag in the corner that gives a visual indication of priority. So I can see right away that Bernadette has an urgent priority order coming up later in the day. And I also have a little time divider here. I don't know if you can see this blue line, but this is telling me current time. So from this view, I can see that Alan's in progress from this green color on a work order. Bernadette is still in travel status, so it looks like she's stuck in traffic because she was supposed to start about 15 minutes ago. Bob hasn't arrived yet. Brady is already on break. We'll have to talk to him about that, and so on. Another thing to point out, again, about the universal scheduling is we have work orders up at the top, but we also have project work that is scheduled here. So I can see that Chris and Van are both assigned to this roof restoration project. Down below for scheduling, there are a number of unscheduled items, open requirements as they're called, so I can schedule anything that's down here, projects, work orders, anything else. I can have filtered views of project and unscheduled work orders. And this is our IoT alert work order that we'll schedule in just a moment. I also have a map view. So for example, if I wanted to zoom in to where this work order is, I just click on it and it's going to appear on the map. And I can zoom in and see what's going on there. You'll also notice on the map that I can see the routes the technicians are planned to be on. So if I hover over this icon, for example, it's going to tell me this is Alan's work order. He's going to be here at a given start and end time, so we know what's going on. And we can see that this work order that needs to be scheduled is actually near to him. So a good visual geographic sort of view of what's happening with the orders. Okay. So let's go ahead and schedule the order that we had. So I'm going to run what's called the schedule assistant, and I mentioned that before, so let's do find availability. Right now what it's doing is it's applying all of those factors I mentioned to see who's available and when. It's coming back and saying the soonest that we can get somebody out there is the 27th, next Monday, which is definitely not soon enough. So this isn't going to work. You'll also note it's telling me the estimated travel time for the two guys that are available, Alan and Bob. So I'm going to exit that and take us back to the current, to the current day. And I look at the schedule and I can see again using the visual cues that Bob has a high priority work item already. I don't really want to disrupt his day. He does have a sold order at the end of the day, but that's probably too late in the day, and the assistant calculated travel time and determined that he wasn't available to work on that anyway. So we're a little bit stuck with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this item for Alan to do sort of a what-if analysis to see if I can work it into Alan's day. So I do that. I'm going to run the assistant again. And I see, yes, he does have availability if I reschedule this work order. And in fact, the travel time's a lot more favorable than what we saw for the 27th. So I'm going to go ahead and book that. But first, I want to talk to Alan and make sure that he's available. So I do that by just going in the schedule board, and I see Alan's record. And I can see that I can send him a text message or do a quick phone call or send him an email through integration. So let's do a Skype message. So it brings up my Skype window, and at the same time, I'm going to close Alan down here. And I'm going to bring up my view of the device here. So right now I'm showing you the actual device that's registered for Alan, and I will send him a message. Alan, can you take an urgent work order today? You see it shows up on his device. So Alan just taps on his device to answer that question. And he might use voice to text here, so I'll just say, yes, I'm finishing up, so I can probably do it. And it even takes my muddled speech there. So I can respond. quickly and say, great, look for the schedule update in a few minutes. Okay. So we're all set there. I'm going to go ahead and book since Alan said that was okay to do. And I'm done with the schedule assistant. So now to reorganize the schedule, I'm going to take the order that was later in the day and scoot that back up so it falls right on the tail end of that order. And we'll see on Alan's device, let me bring that back up. If I go back to the main screen and I launch the mobile app, do a quick refresh. And refresh is here. I mentioned the sync capabilities. Refresh is here. They can be done automatically or manually. I've got this set to run disconnected mode, so I'm doing it manually. So I'm going to go to assignments. We're running out of time here. And you can see that the assignment appears. There's his high priority item. It shows in highlight. I'm going to open that up. And then I can navigate and see the schedule, the order details. I'm going to push to the IoT alerts and jump into that. And now I want to go to the device. So Alan knows, he thinks he's seen this before. He is going to send an IoT device command to reset the device. So I go to the commands. I simply add a command. And then if I want to, let's say I want to set the max RPM down to 74. Set the speed. And this composes the command that's going to send directly to the IoT device. So I save and send that. And refresh. And what's happening is that command's going to D365, which is routing it to the Azure IoT Hub and sending that to the device. And it does that in about 2 seconds. So that, in a nutshell, is Alan completing the work order. I want to end now because we're out of time. But what he would do at this point is set his booking status to completed. He's finished with the work. He's confirmed that the reset worked fine on the device, and he's moving on to his next project. Just really quick, last comment here. Other commands that are available, and these are readily available throughout. If I go to the map view, for example, I can see where I have all of my assets. So I'm going to zoom in. And I can see all of my assets in the field. For example, I think that may be the one actually. There's the wind tower that Alan is working on. I can also see those associated with work orders in addition. So I can layer work orders on top of the assets that are viewed here. Some other capabilities, I didn't get a chance to show you this, but there is the ability to do barcode scanning. We also have some integration. The system is integrated with the rest of Dynamics 365, of course, so I can do ERP types of functions that you normally would not see. So I have the ability to see my inventory, my on-hand levels, as well as what's needed. I can submit purchase orders. I can execute transfer orders between myself and another technician in the field without having to be an ERP user. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a taste of this. I apologize for running over time.
We want to thank everyone that joined today and spent some time with us. I know this was a ton of information to try to take in within an hour, but as you guys can see, the Connected Cloud, it offers a lot of opportunity to companies in field service, and we'd be happy to work with any of you to get you through that. So with that, this will conclude today's webcast, and thanks again for coming.